Welcome to the Wednesday, June 16th, June THS Board meeting. We do not have a physical quorum today, so this will have to function as a workshop. And what I'd like to do is, hello, Mr. Hardy, is on the issues that would ordinarily require a vote, I'd like to get a consensus from those who are physically here and available on Zoom. It looks to me like David Mechanic might be the only other person coming in, so we'll have to figure out how to deal with the issues that ordinarily would require a vote. I suppose they can wait till the next meeting. We'll see. Anyway, since everybody's here, I'll call the meeting to order, and let's have the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Since we don't have a quorum, we will we'll skip the approval of minutes until the next meeting where we can actually vote. Public input is next on our agenda. Is anyone in the public that would like to be heard today? Hearing none, let's move to action item 4A, which is resolution R 2021-0603, request to extend streetcar hours for Boom by the Bay. Mr. Allen?
Good afternoon. Brian Allen, Director of Streetcar Operations. In front of you is Resolution R 2021-0603.
Could you speak up a little, please?
Yes, I have Resolution R 2021-0603, request to extend streetcar hours of operations for the city's 4th of July event, Boom by the Bay. The city has scheduled this event. It has several locations along the Channel District, and staff is anticipating the need to extend streetcar hours of operation due to the increased demand based on past ridership. In the past, Boom by the Bay, the last Boom by the Bay in 2019, we hauled 7,847 riders, which is compared to an average Sunday or an average day of the week, which would be 1,216. 4th of July have always been very busy for us, so what we are recommending is that we extend the 4-car regular service 1 additional hour, and that from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. we run an additional 5th car to further move the crowds. And this would have a financial impact of $1,986.56, which is in our budget.
Great. Any questions?
No questions. I strongly support it. I think the growth over the years of the Boom by the Bay and fireworks in general has been tremendous.
Oh, yeah.
And we should continue to support that.
Well, and the man putting it on for the city is in our audience, and I'm sure he can talk about, and we'd probably like to talk a little bit about how it has expanded and blossomed into a much bigger deal this year. We'll get to Mr. Drinkard in a little bit. So, is there a
question?
Yeah, Cal?
Did you say 7,800 from 1,200 to 7,800?
Our average, in 2019, it was on a Thursday. Our average ridership on Thursdays is 1,216 riders.
Okay.
And that year it was, for that 4th of July, it was 7,847.
Okay, thank you.
Just
So-
one more comment
Sure.
about that. I understand the convention center will have a big group of elk that are in town, between 6,000 and 9,000 people that are getting out right at that same time that we should be aware of. They'll have buses all through the convention center parking area that would typically be filled with pedestrians. That may impact the streetcar and how many people are now shifting over towards Dick Greco Plaza. So just to keep that in mind when we're moving people around, especially at that 9 to 10 o'clock period.
Right.
Susan Williams at Visit Tampa Bay can give you all the details. She's very concerned about all the people there for Boom by the Bay and all these Elks, many of whom are elderly, who are going to get out basically at 9 o'clock, and some are going to want to leave, and some are going to want to stay, and some are going to ride the streetcar. So if you could touch base with her, we would appreciate it.
We'll definitely do that.
Good. Any other questions? So do we have a consensus among those present that this is a good idea and we're going to approve it?
Yes.
Everybody's good?
Yes.
Okay, good, Brian. Thank you so much. Now, you might as well stay because you now have the streetcar system report.
All right.
President English, I have a question.
Yeah.
Since we don't have a quorum here today, and our next meeting is scheduled to occur after the 4th of July, how do we want to proceed? I know that we can't take a formal vote, but can we move forward? You know, what's the process here? Do we have to have a special meeting to get formal approval, or based on the consensus vote, is that acceptable for us to move forward with adding the additional service and an additional vehicle?
Well, Mr. Smoker can speak to that.
Certainly. I think based on the consensus, I would feel comfortable having the president authorize the change.
Turn your mic on.
I'm sorry. Based on the fact that we have a consensus, even though we don't have a quorum, I'm comfortable that the president can rely on that consensus and go ahead and approve the request.
Okay, is that satisfactory?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Sure. Good with everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Allen?
Okay, for May, of the 4,202 scheduled trips we had 20 reported missed trips. The missed trips were caused by a shortage of operators, which was 7 1/4 trips. On May 26, we had an accident at Franklin and Channelside where a black Saturn Vue ran a red light and struck the streetcar, and that resulted in 4 lost trips. On May 20th, we had a streetcar pick a switch in front of the Sparkman's Wharf, which accounted for 3.5 missed trips. 3 1/4 trips were due to mechanical issues, and 2 lost trips were due to a TECO power outage. So OTP for May was 99.95% with 2 reported late departures. We did not provide any extra service in May, but our ridership for May was 75,417, which was better than 2019's number pre-pandemic, which was 52,580. Of course, 2020 during the pandemic of this month would have been 22,289. So quite an improvement. And of our boardings this month, 59 were ADA boardings. And finally, I've had on the system changes for a long time here that I had an open facilities position. I'm happy to report that that position was filled yesterday, so you will no longer see that on my report.
Good.
Does anybody have any
Congrats.
questions?
Yeah, any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Go ahead, David.
On the accident, I didn't hear, you said some type of van. I didn't hear what that was. And I'd also like you to comment on whether or not that motorist was cited as being at fault in the accident.
Absolutely. The car that struck the streetcar was a black Saturn Vue, and it just minor damage to the streetcar, but pretty major damage to the vehicle. But nobody was injured in this, and the driver of the Vue was cited for careless driving.
Okay. I think from my recollection, every accident that has occurred has been the fault of the other guy, so to speak, which I think is noteworthy for us to make mention of. Anyway, that's all I have.
Yes, I believe you're correct, sir.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Mr. Allen.
I do have a question and a comment on that.
Sure.
One, do you have, it looks like each month, we have really been increasing our ridership. It would be really nice if we can get all the data over the time span, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and maybe even during the pandemic, just to have a baseline to compare to, but showing month-by-month increases in the ridership. I'd be interested in seeing, since the free fare came about, and then 2019, sorry, forgot about the whole year there, 2019 and then 2020 and then 21, see how we're trending up. Because that's pretty fantastic, 73,000 compared to an 53,000, that's quite a jump. And that's, not just basically pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, that's pretty great. And like everybody's been saying, not everybody's still working downtown anymore. So if we had full office space, I can't imagine what that number would be. Pretty fantastic. So that was the question, and then the comment just on the entering into the track by vehicles and stuff like that. I just wanted to let you know that we are working on some striping plans with the city to try to prevent that a little bit, adding some red pavement paint at those intersections. So we should be wrapping those up pretty soon.
That's great.
And if I may, if staff can bring up the actual report that Mr. Allen just provided, I know those of us in the room, we have access to it, but I'm unsure if everyone online. And I do think, Mr. Hardy, your request is appropriate. And in Mr. Allen's report, there is a section that says component performance, where he shows the ridership for May, so just the month of May,
Right.
from 2019, 2020, and 2021. And I think if you look at those numbers, it's very dramatic. And you can see from 2019, it was around 53,000 for the month's ridership numbers. 2020, you're looking at approximately 22,000. And now in 2021, it's 75,000, right? And we're still not all the way out of the pandemic. We just started opening things up. So you see that our numbers for 2021 have, morphed the numbers in 2019. So we're on track to really hitting the 100,000, ridership a month mark. So we're trying to get ramped up for that. It's super exciting. And that's with the existing system, right? Without the extension, without any additional investment. So, again, the conversation is about how do we do more with what we currently have as we work toward growing the system. And I think the team is doing a great job of making sure that we can make that happen with what we have and maximizing our resources. So again, I would like to thank you, Mr. Allen, in front of everyone for the good work that you're continuing to do in the leadership of your team.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We have a question.
And just to further that a little bit, we're not always great about boasting or tooting our own horn, but we have a great marketing team, and I think it's noteworthy to make sure that we get that in social media aspects.
Yeah.
And maybe the newspaper or wherever that may seem. We may want to wait a month or so
Yeah, that's a
until we
great
have
idea.
convention back in full force too, to
Right.
really show that acceleration in the numbers. But be proud and share it with the perception is key, right?
Exactly.
So,
Excellent.
thank you.
Okay. Agenda item number 6A, presentation of the fiscal 2022 HART GHS preliminary budget. Ms. Caceres?
Good afternoon, President English, members of the board, and Ms. LeGrand. This is Joanne Caceres, Director of Budget and Grants for HART. Today, for your consideration, is the fiscal year 2022 HART and Tampa Historic Streetcar preliminary budget. What I will be covering is an overview of the fiscal year 22 service model, operating statistics, HART's streetcar operating revenues and expenses, the Tampa Historic Streetcar operating budget, the combined HART and Tampa Historic Streetcar budget, and capital expenditures, and then the next steps. Next slide, please. This is the fiscal year 22 proposed service model, which is the same level of service that we have provided for the past few years. This slide shows the hours and frequency by day, also the projection for fiscal year 22 service hours, which is 23,660. Next slide, please. This chart shows the revenue hours, revenue miles, ridership, average revenue hours per day, average riders per day, and the cost per service hour from fiscal year 2019 to fiscal year 22. You can see that our highest ridership in the last few years was 878,000 in fiscal year 19. In fiscal year 21, as of April, the projection for ridership is to reach the 679,000 trips and 129,600 revenue miles. Focusing on fiscal year 22, the ridership is expected to increase by 101,000 or 15% over the fiscal year 21 projection. Here is the, next slide please, thank you. Here is the HART portion of the streetcar operating revenues budget for fiscal year 22. This is a balanced budget for a total amount of 2.8 million, which is 280,000 greater than the fiscal year 21 adopted budget, or an increase of 11.1%. I would like to share a few highlights with you. For the fiscal year 22 budget and part of the fiscal year 21, the streetcar advertising revenue is presented in the HART portion of the budget due to a modification in the Vector Media agreement. Previously, this revenue was presented in the Tampa Historic Streetcar budget only. HART was awarded also new funding from the Florida Department of Transportation under the Commuter Assistance Program grant in the amount of $710,000. This will allow for a fourth year of streetcar free fares. This amount is included in the $991,000 that you see contribution from the Florida Department of Transportation. Also, we anticipate 100% of the local match contributions for the FDOT free fare grants, and these are included in the budget. $310,000 from downtown channel-side CRAs, $60,000 from the Tampa Downtown Partnership, and $331,000 from the City of Tampa Central Business District multimodal fees. Since the budget considers this additional funding and local contributions, you can see a reduction in the Tampa Historic Streetcar contribution, which is the difference of actual expenses, less fares, grants, and other revenues collected by HART. Next slide, please. So this shows the HART portion of the streetcar operating expense budget for fiscal year 2022. And as you can see, the overall operating expenses are budgeted at $2.8 million. Next slide, please. This is the Tampa Historic Streetcar portion of the budget. This data is provided by the City of Tampa, and they are estimating a total budget for the Tampa Historic Streetcar of $1.1 million. I do want to point out that the budget incorporates a slight reduction in the CSX insurance costs when compared to the fiscal year 21 budget. I know that there was a proposal out there that reflects much more, so we would go into further discussion with the City of Tampa. I don't know if there's someone is online currently that they can discuss it when we get to the questions.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So here you will see the combined HART and Tampa Historic operating budget for fiscal year 22. This is a balanced budget for a total amount of $3.7 million, which is $436,000 greater than fiscal year 21 adopted budget, or an increase of 13%. Next slide, please. On this slide, we have positions for fiscal year 22, which remain the same as current staffing levels at 33 full-time employees. I do want to mention that there are 2 road supervisors that were partially on the streetcar budget that we don't currently charge to the operations. Next slide, please. This is a 5-year, this is 5 years of capital expenditures. The $4.1 million for the 5 years is primarily funded with federal funds. The capital projects include maintenance of the streetcar, including 4 vehicle overhauls, maintenance to the barn and equipment, and the infrastructure maintenance costs you see here is for the streetcar railroad tie replacement project. Next slide, please. These are the next steps in order to get the budget promoted and adopted. The city of Tampa has requested I send them the preliminary budget by July 2nd to incorporate into the city of Tampa's budget. Also, the budget is scheduled to be approved by you as the Tampa Historic Streetcar Board of Directors in August, and then finally to the HART Board of Directors for approval in September. This concludes my presentation. I will be available to answer any questions you have at this time.
Thank you very much. Questions from board members?
Thank you.
Questions and comments. On page 5, am I speaking into the mic, Alana? I love that we're being aggressive in our advertising and hoping to gain an extra $30,000 in advertising revenues. That's great. I noticed as the line, the special asterisk number 3, the $200,000 in in-towner, is that the in-towner is not being used, so we're able to switch the funds over to streetcar use?
That's correct. We've been doing that for the past few years, and there's been just a slight reduction of $26,000 because we were dipping into the fund balance, so this year we're just, the contribution would be $200,000, and that's
Okay.
correct.
Wonderful, thank you. And then on the page 6 for salaries and wages, the additional cost of $291,000, I imagine that will help aid with more availability of motormen, so we don't have the issues like last month of shortage? Is that
Is this slide 6?
page 6? Yes, the
those are
first
up.
line item of salaries and wages?
So those are salary and wages. There's an increase in the expenses for salary and wages, and that increase is primarily due to annualized new rates for the ATU employees.
Okay, do you think that will help aid in making sure people show up so that we don't have the mistrips?
We'll ask that Ms. LeGrand answer that.
Yeah.
Right, and I would say overall, we don't have a problem. Mr. Allen can jump in with mistrips on the streetcar side.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that that's something that we have been, trying to fix. That was just an anomaly because we did change the schedule. So 3 times a year, we do a markup, and sometimes people get confused as far as what am I running, and then they end up missing the trip. So I think that update was more in alignment with the change in the schedule and a little bit of confusion. But overall, we have a solid workforce for the streetcar, and we don't anticipate any challenges there. Mr. Allen, did you have anything you wanted to share?
And I would agree that across the board, everyone is having a hard time with staffing and making sure they're prepared. I'm seeing signs all over restaurants, right? So congrats on having a good, solid team.
Yeah, our mistrips caused by operators is actually a pretty low number.
Okay.
All the way around. And you got to remember that it's like one mistrip in the morning while we get a standby operator to fill it. So at that time, we're running 3-car service for an hour, and then we get the extra operator in, and we go back up to 15-minute service from there.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yep.
And then my last question was in regards to the CSX insurance that you so kindly noticed that I would be discussing. Last I recall, Mr. Mielek had suggested that our premium was going to be around $588,000. And I know that's subject to change each year. Can you give any more insight on that?
Well, I'm going to request to see if there's someone from the city of Tampa online that maybe they could respond,
Okay,
and at least from the accounting or the budget office. If not, I will share your question I did this morning
okay.
with the city of Tampa and ensure you get a response.
Yes, and it's simply just a curiosity. I understand everyone is doing the best they can, and it's kind of out of your control, so just kind of more curious than anything else. I appreciate all the hard work you're putting in to give us such a nice detailed budget.
Are there other questions? I just had one question. Typically, we also, included in this package every year is the THS budget itself, which is not present this year. Could you be sure and go back and figure out why not and put it back in? We pay legal fees and some other things. I don't want that to get lost.
We do have a slide, it's something in addition to slide 7, which is the THS.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you at all.
Sorry about that. So on slide 7, we do include the Tampa Historic Streetcar operating budget, and there we have the revenues and expenses, which include insurance, attorney fees, accounting fees.
Oh, okay.
That's on slide 7.
I'm sorry, I missed
Fine.
it. Thank you so much. Any other questions? Okay, if not, let us, thank you very much.
Thank
Do we have a consensus that this budget is acceptable to be forwarded to the city of Tampa?
Yes.
Yes.
Cal?
Yes.
You good?
Yes.
Abby?
Yes.
Yes.
Dave Mechanic?
Yes.
Okay, you have the consensus, Ms. LeGrand, so please forward it to the city with the understanding that we have to formally approve it at our July meeting. Okay, well, that was anticlimactic, which is a good thing. Let's move to item 6B, Winter Village Express. Sean Drinkard and Rachel Radowick, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about the Winter Village Express, Winter Village itself. Anything particular about Boom by the Bay you wanted to hear in addition before I start on Winter Village?
Well, just briefly, and even before you do that, I want to thank you and you two and Linda Remond and Karen Kress for making a significant contribution to our budget for next year. We really appreciated it. I know it was a bite and it was a hard swallow, but you did it, and we all appreciate it a lot. So yeah, I think everybody would be interested. The Boom by the Bay is going to be a big deal this year, a bigger deal than even in the past.
Yeah, no, absolutely. 2019 was the first year for Boom by the Bay. If you remember, it was 4 locations: Armature Works, JBL, Convention Center, and Sparkman Wharf. Those 4 locations brought around 200,000 people to the waterfront downtown. So everyone getting in and out of downtown in such a large capacity is, highly important. As we skip 2020, moving into 2021, 2 new locations are added. So the same 4 locations, but also adding Curtis Hickson and Bayshore. Adding the Bayshore piece is a pretty big component in a few ways. One, from the show itself, but also it closes a mile of Bayshore from Platte down to Rome. Just over a mile, that section will be closed, but adding definite space for people to view. These 6 shows are choreographed to a soundtrack, and all 6 shows will be working simultaneously. So really an amazing project that everyone's putting together this year, and we're 2 weeks out.
Okay,
An
good.
important piece of this is the timeline for you guys, when thinking about extended hours and everything like that. The launch for the fireworks is at 9:15, and the show will last for 20 minutes. So that's taking us to about 9:35. Foot traffic will really kind of start filtering in around the 4 o'clock timeframe for the 5 o'clock boat parade. And then the park activations that we will be running logistics for, which is Julian B. Lane, Curtis Hickson, and Bayshore, will all kick off at 7 o'clock.
So, and the streetcar manager director will be aware of all this? Yeah, good, thanks. Okay, Winter Village.
Winter Village. So I'll give a little overview of just Winter Village as a whole, how it ties in with the Winter Village Express. So I'll hand it off to Rachel for some details on the Express specifically. We're rolling into year 6 for Winter Village. Winter Village began with taking the ice rink at Curtis Hickson Park and reinventing it into a bigger picture, which became Winter Village. The intent of Winter Village was to create a holiday atmosphere throughout all of downtown, with the base being at Curtis Hickson. We moved the ice rink down to the Riverwalk 6 years ago. We grew it with food and beverage and retail. We added lighting in and around Curtis Hickson with choreographed music. We then started to step out into the core of downtown with additional lights in Gaslight Park. As we move into Gaslight Park, we're creating that connection through Gaslight Park into Poe Plaza to the streetcar stop, which we get to Winter Village, or to the Winter Village Express. So we're really looking at this cohesive, continuing to grow expansion of the holiday environment downtown this year as part of that connectivity. We've been doing some work in Gaslight Square with the Square, which is an urban plaza that we hope can continue to evolve into a bigger picture for Winter Village this year. We've also purchased additional lighting that'll go on poles from Curtis Hickson all the way over to the streetcar stop, which we can talk about more with the Express itself. So it's grown year by year. We're continuing to expand that footprint. Been great success on all levels. Last year, we added online ticketing for the skating in Curtis Hickson. We did that in response to COVID. Actually worked out to our benefit. We had record attendance at the ice rink last year because we were able to spread people out. So it's been great success. And while we did have to put the Winter Village Express on hold in 2020, we had so many people constantly asking about it last year. And as Rachel will talk about, the success we had in 2019, everybody's super excited to see it return. And I think it'll just be another added bonus to what we have coming this year. So, Rachel.
So some of you guys might remember this is going to be the 4th year now for the Winter Village Express, and some of you joined us in our inaugural year when Sean and I were the show and the entertainment on board. We've come a long way since then. We're also very excited that we're no longer the show, but as we roll into our 4th year, we wanted to let you know that some of the improvements that we made in year 3, which was 2019, were a huge success. First and foremost, we went from having 2 pickup locations to just loading at the Whiting station. This was great for a customer service perspective. We weren't having to turn people away in Ybor, which we always found to be an issue. Most people loaded up at Whiting, and then there were a few spots available once we got to Ybor. Guests still have the option of departing at the Centro Ybor location, but the round trip does start and end at Whiting Street. Additionally, we made the jump to online ticketing a year early for the Express than we did for the ice skating, and that was really successful for us as well. We worked with UNation on that. It allowed us an online platform to promote it, but also a way for ticketing. It was the first year that we charged for the ride, which was something new for us. It's always hard for us to predict what revenue might look like because we don't really know who's going to show up. It's kind of that anxiety before your party that your friends come to visit. But it was really successful. We sold out every single streetcar. So like Sean mentioned, this is a very popular program. I think it has become part of people's holiday tradition, so they look forward to it year over year. Sean made mention we're really working on that connection between Curtis Hickson Park and the Whiting Station, building through Likes, and then also Poe Plaza, which takes you directly to the station. We'll be working with Visit Tampa Bay to enhance that experience there, and then we'll be working in Likes Park, really kind of bringing a kid focus to both of those areas since those are our main patrons on the Express. So we're here in front of you guys today, but before we go to the ask, I wanted to know if you had any questions for us regarding the program. And we're not making any changes to what we ran in 2019. If it's not broke, don't fix it. So we think we have a pretty successful model right now. And so we're coming back to you guys with the same ask that we've made year over year for this. It's just a partial contribution to the streetcar charter at $18.75, and then assistance with the wrap, where we do not a full wrap, it's the half, so it's the front, back, and the half panels on the side, branded Winter Village Express, with notice of Tampa Historic Streetcar on there at $1,600 for a total of $3,475.
Questions?
Are we charging them to rent this streetcar?
No. Well, if you look at the budget on your computer, what we have done in the past is waive the THS contribution, which saves them that much money. We've been doing that since it started. I must say, I'm particularly excited this year because there will be a lighted path from Curtis Hickson Park to the streetcar station, all the way through what those of us who've been around a while call the Esplanade. I'm not sure what Visit Tampa Bay is calling it now.
Treasure Plaza.
Exactly. But I think that's very exciting, and I suspect that you'll be fully booked as you have been in the past. So Is there a consensus that we are willing to waive our fees for them once again this year?
Yes.
I see people nodding yes. Dave Mechanic, you okay?
Yes, sir.
All righty.
Absolutely.
And I am too. So we will formalize this at our meeting next month. Thank you all very much for coming. We're looking forward to Christmas.
Thanks so much for your continued support, you
Sure.
guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Smoker, legal report.
Mr. President, I don't have anything formal. I do want to bring to the attention of the board, we have received a request from Public Supermarkets to extend the renewal periods on their current sponsorship agreement that pertains to the Port Tampa station. They want to extend it. The amendment that we signed last year allowed them to extend for 2 years. They're now essentially requesting to be able to extend for 3 years. Additionally, they've given an indication that they may want to sponsor an additional station, in particular the Amalie station. My understanding from Tyler Rowland is that there's currently a advertiser who has that station booked until the end of January of 2022. So we're going to take a look at the existing agreement to make sure that it can be transferred over and a new agreement negotiated with Publix. Publix is asking, as far as the new station, that we give them a discount of $5,000. The current schedule for the existing Port Tampa station is they pay $25,000 per year. $20,000 goes straight to THS. $5,000 is held in reserve in order to spruce up as necessary the actual station advertising. So I think what will happen is probably Tyler Rowland and I will talk with the Publix folks and see whether it's feasible to add them to this additional station, and then whether or not we want to go ahead and extend out for an additional year beyond the 2 years extension that they currently have by contract. We may want to consider increasing the amount that we're charging them. Ultimately, I think that's something that we can discuss with them and see where it ends up. And I think the plan would be hopefully to bring back an agreement either for the additional extension on the existing Port Tampa station and possibly an agreement relating to the Port Amalie station. I'm sorry, the Amalie Arena station.
Do you happen to know, or Tyler, whose name is on that station now?
On the existing Amalie station?
Can't hear you. Yes, on the Amelie's.
It's still just the Amalie station right now.
It's who?
It's Amalie station right now. The name of the station is just the Amalie station right now.
Their name is on it.
Right.
I'd be really shocked if they want to give that up. I mean,
Based on some of the records that I've researched from when that was originally arranged, it was kind of in good faith that we named it that way. I think they just paid for the name, for the sign to be created.
so they didn't even give us any money for it.
That's what it looks like from the records that I could find. Yeah.
Well, isn't that interesting?
But there's no sign agreement or contract or anything.
No
regarding
kidding.
that.
Okay, so that station is technically available.
Correct.
I'd like to rely on you and our legal counsel to sort this out for next month, and let's see what we can do.
Absolutely.
I would very much like to have Publix pay twice, but Amelie's a big deal, so,
And the Amalie station would be promoting their Greenwise brand. So since the new Greenwise market that's going to be open, I don't know if it's open quite yet. but
right, and
that's-
it's,
yeah.
right, in their development, so,
Right.
yeah, please, diplomatically, please discuss it with them as well as Publix.
We'll make sure to give them a first right of option if they want to do.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, this is Dave Mechanic.
Yes.
If I could, I'd just like to maybe add to the points that I think Michael are making here. If they're looking for a discount, I'd at least want to make sure I understood what the rationale for that would be. But, both Amalie and Publix are companies that are highly successful, and I'm not sure the Streetcar is in a position to be, offering discounts and things like that. I mean, I'm not saying I reject the idea, I just would like to really understand why we would want to do that, what the incentive is for us to do that, I mean, obviously, it's a plus for us to have them have naming rights to those stations, but beyond that, I'd just like to hear a little bit more of what their rationale is before we would entertain agreeing to that. And I guess part of the discussion needs to be if Emily is going to continue to have whatever rights it thinks it has, or if informally or not, maybe we should be asking Emily to step up to the plate there, and then also, is there another station that Publix might want to attach to if the Emily station turns out to want to be continued to be occupied by Emily?
Yeah,
So just a few thoughts for further discussions.
Yeah.
That's all.
And I had posed that question to them if it wasn't available, if they were interested in another stop, and they were pretty adamant about wanting that particular stop, just based on logistically located right next to their Greenwise store. But, I mean, we absolutely can have these conversations and kind of discuss
Yeah.
further. Yep.
Yeah, I'll add to that just
Yeah.
because of the increased ridership too.
Yeah.
It's more eyes on it. Are there any stations that are not available for advertisement?
Just Publix is really the current one that's.
No, I mean,
Oh.
any of the stops, sorry.
We own the Dick Greco Plaza, so
That would be the only
that would be
one.
probably the only one.
That's kind of what I figured, because it kind of has its own,
Yeah, and we sell the advertising there. It's not typically a sponsored station.
right.
Could be. So, yeah, when Publix did this deal over 2 years ago, our riderships skyrocketed. Back in the day, advertisers and people selling it were kind of selling the number of impressions, the number of people, and, things have changed. These stations, and something that you all internally, professionally need to think about, are we charging enough?
Yeah. And you guys had posed that question, I believe, right before we renewed Publix last time.
Uh-huh.
You had posed that question, and I can send the report again, that we had done some research on similar-sized agencies, what they were charging as annual sponsorships and advertising areas, and we're fairly comparable to those other agencies.
So you're comfortable that we're probably still comparable?
I'd say we're pretty comfortable at this point, but again, that was a year ago. We can certainly go back and look and see what those other agencies are charging currently.
Yeah, refresh it a little bit for
Sure.
us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This mechanic again. I mean, if our ridership has doubled from whenever the last year was before we got the DOT grant, I mean, the value of the naming rights has to be greater. I mean, it just does. The impressions have got to be double or something like that, so.
Have the rates changed much, Tyler, for streetcar wraps?
The rates have been pretty much the same for the last couple of years.
Well, you might talk to the company
Sure.
that handles that for us too, just to see, because we could be in a position in the next couple of years to have more stations to name, and
Absolutely.
sponsorships. Yeah.
And obviously the assets in which we're able to
Right.
to propose to them as well. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
We'll look forward to hearing from you all next month. Yes, Cal.
So as far as are we actively marketing the stations as well?
Absolutely.
As-
That is part of
And that's
Vectors.
part of the Vector?
Yeah.
Okay. I just didn't know if that was stations
Yeah.
and cars, but.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
That would conclude my report.
Thank you, David. Chair's report, I really don't have anything to report. HART's Chief Executive Officer's report, Ms. LeGrand.
So yes, just a couple of things. As was mentioned during the budget conversation, the next meeting to present the budget for adoption to this board would be in August. So the
We
August.
don't meet in July?
No, we meet in July, but at the August board meeting is when we're going to present the budget for adoption to this board.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Perhaps in July, we'll actually vote on the preliminary, since
Okay.
we haven't, but that's fine.
Okay, so what I wanted to revisit, I think it was the last meeting where we talked about having a series of conversations at our board meetings and to add it to the agenda. So since we won't have, for the July meeting, even if we do bring forward the budget to get a formal, approval of the preliminary budget at that time, I do think that there's an opportunity on our schedule to have one of those conversations. And I know Cal and I have had a conversation about him, and if he's still open for Cal to do a presentation on some of the projects that he feels that will have a great intersection with the streetcar, and maybe we can program that for July. So just wanted to share that with the group. Cal and I have had a conversation offline about this, and I think July would be a good meeting
Sure.
for us to bring that to the body.
Yeah, I've talked to Ms. Arthur about putting that onto the agenda and basically just trying to present some of the city projects that
Good.
we have been doing in relation to the streetcar, or maybe that could lead into the streetcar for expansion, bus rapid transit, that kind of thing.
Excellent.
So I'll be prepared to do that on next month.
Okay, great. We'll look forward to it. Thank you.
So that's what I wanted to share with the group, and we're still moving forward to make sure that these meetings, we can conduct business, but also help to inform our board of what's going on with streetcar, what's going on here in our local market, as well as what's going on nationally. So,
Excellent.
That's
Thank
it.
you so much.
thank you.
Mr. Rowland, Vector Sales Report.
We primarily discussed most of what I was going to talk about, but the advertising revenue for the months of January through April is at $57,500 based on the quarterly payment guarantee of $28,750 a quarter. So, and we obviously discussed the Publix piece, so that was what I was going to talk about further. But if there's any other questions, happy to ask.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to compliance reports. Marketing, City of Tampa financials. Any questions about these items? Hearing none, is there any old business, which we haven't already taken care of? Any new business? In which case, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much. I would just encourage HART staff to make every effort to get enough people here next month. I don't know where the hell everybody is, but I know summer's tough, but we need a quorum next month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Thank you.